Good evening, Major. I think you
Good evening, doctor. How are you?
fine. Thank you. Good evening to Research Cell Dayanand Sagar University, our scholars who are here and some guests also.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the invitation and giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. And I hope that we will have a fruitful session. And looking forward for a great hour coming up.
Yes. We will wait for Dr. Banga sir to join.
Yeah.
And I request all participants to kindly cooperate with all of us because you'll have to mute yourselves till the time it is time for the interaction session because unlike Zoom, we wouldn't be able to mute all of you. So kindly help us in running the session by muting your audios so that there is less disturbance. Sapna Dongre. Ma'am, Sapna ma'am, kindly if you could mute your audio, ma'am. It's creating a little bit of disturbance. Sapna Dongre ma'am. Ma'am, if you can hear me, kindly mute your audio, please. Or any friend of Professor can please pass on the message. And in case somebody gets logged out, the same link you can re-log in. Dr. Banga sir has also joined. Good evening, sir. Major Rohit Singh Bisht is present here with us.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Major Rohit ji. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to interact with everyone. And
Pleasure. We want to hear you. Our research scholars, say, will be more than say probably happy to listen to you. Yeah, there are a lot of things to be learned from defense forces.
thank you very much, sir. So kind of you.
Jen Ladre has research scholars.
They are actually they are.
Hello.
Dr. Anupama, I think we'll have to wait for a few minutes because some must have reached their home just now, or maybe they will reach now after some time. So because there was office today, right? We'll wait for 2 to 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was also requesting the participants to kindly mute their audios because unlike Zoom, we will not be able to mute all of you. So request your kind support in muting your audio so that there is no disturbance. You will all have an interaction session, which is a question and answer session after Major Rohit has spoken. And in case you are getting logged out, the same link will work. So you can just re-log in with the same link. And for the information of everyone, we are recording the session. So the videos will be made available after some time. In case you would like to express any opinion or you would like to ask, kindly feel free to use the chat box. The chat box is available. You can put in your views, questions, opinions, or perspectives, or anything that you would like to ask even now also. Major Rohit, are you able to see the chat box, sir?
As of now, yes, ma'am. I can. Yeah,
Okay.
chat box. Yes, I can.
Okay. Would you like to check on and put up your presentation, or just to check whether it's all
Yeah,
fine till the time we wait?
I'll just do that.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Once again, good evening to everyone. Good evening to Major Rohit Singh, who has joined us. Good evening to Dr. Banka sir, Dean Research Cell, Dayanand Sagar University. Good evening to all the scholars, participants, guests who have joined from outside. Our hearty good evening to all of you. We are here for a pre-Independence Day webinar with Major Rohit Singh Bisht, who is retired from the Indian Army, who will be delivering a session on how to stay positive with lessons drawn from the Army life, which I think will be relevant for all of us uh, in all professions, especially in today's or contemporary times when COVID-19 is wreaking havoc, and still we'll have to pursue our professions and our lives despite the challenges. So it was on this very specific uh, event or the moment, which is prior to the Independence Day, that we thought of bringing a speaker who becomes very much relevant for today's times and for the occasion, which is one day before the Independence Day. That is why this pre-Independence Day webinar is being conducted by the research cell, Dayanand Sagar University, under the inspirational leadership of Dr. M.K. Banga, Dean Research, for the benefit of all doctoral scholars and any of their friends and colleagues who are joining from outside.
Ma'am, I'll just share the presentation and please let me know whether it's visible or not.
Yes,
Um,
it is visible. I would actually request someone also from there. Sir, are you able to see that, Banga
I'm
sir?
able to say that. Yeah, right.
Okay.
A lot of staying positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. So, ma'am,
Dr.
let me
Shreya. Yes, yes, Major. Tell me, sir.
and let me know when we have to start. It's
Yes,
absolutely
yes, yes.
you can wait for all of the participants to join. I'm absolutely fine with it.
Yes, yes. We'll just wait for Dr. Banga sir to tell us.
Yeah, I think some are to join, uh, but there are some say messages coming in already.
Okay.
Oh, this only good evening and all. No, okay, wishing. That's good.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Venkat Rao is one of our guests for the event today. He is an assistant professor of computer science from
Okay.
Sri Ramakrishna Degree and PG College,
Ah,
Nandyal. He is a guest of the university. He is joining from outside,
okay.
and he was interested to join the event, and he came to know about it from the social media. So he's joining. Welcome, sir, Mr. Rao, sir.
Welcome, Professor Venkat Rao.
Good evening to all of you who are joining in. Please put in your messages in the chat box. Major Rohit Singh is able to see the chat box, and Dr. Banga sir also, as well as all the participants.
Dr. Anupama, I think some people are having some problem with their mobile, I believe. They are getting disconnected and again they are joining.
Yes, sir. Actually, the microphone sign here in Google Meet is a little confusing
Okay.
with the phone hanging up, the red one. So I think
Okay.
sometimes it happens, people
Okay.
get confused when they want to mute it.
Uh-huh.
They get disconnected unintentionally.
Right. That is
There's a
true.
microphone sign and there is a phone red sign. Actually,
Yeah. In
uh,
between, that's always creating problem. Yeah. I
yes,
agree with.
yes, yes, sir.
I think we can start now.
Okay.
Good evening, Major Rohit Singh ji, and good evening, my research scholars, and good evening, Dr. Anupama.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, we thought before Independence Day we will have one session because this time the Independence Day happens to be on Saturday, and Saturdays are the days wherein we interact with the research scholars or arrange some sessions by experts from outside. But this time, we didn't want to miss this opportunity. That's the reason as to why we thought we will have pre-independence or session by uh, Major Nasai Rohit Singh, who is ex-army person. And in fact, I made a comment at the beginning. The recent journey is full of uh, fights. It diverts us many times. And so, uh, frustration, depression, and setbacks are quite common in research journey. However, how to stay positive is what we thought uh, the session we will arrange, and hence we have got today the art of staying positive by Major Rohit yes Bist. So Major has immediately agreed to address our research scholars. So Major Rohit ji, I thank you profusely and also I welcome you to this session. Now floor is yours, sir.
So, greeting to everyone, and I am overwhelmed by the kind words spoken by the Dean, Dr. N. Bhanga, and I thank him for that. I thank Dr. Anupama and the university to give me this chance and opportunity to interact with research scholars. And when I first interacted with Dr. Anupama, and we were discussing on what I can present or what I can bring to the forum, I basically said, ma'am, what I have experienced in is one is dealing with groceries in life, and second is how to stay positive. And given the current circumstances and situation and how things are currently, it made sense to me that I interact with the scholars because one, I can relate to them because we're the same age group. And I also feel that by sharing my experiences in life, if I can help somebody on their journey, it's a worthwhile effort. So before I begin my presentation, it is not a mantra. I am not a one of those presenters who believe in giving advice or trying to advise anyone on how they should live their life. It is purely and purely a sharing of my experiences and how I see life as. And what I've tried to do is, include instances or scenarios which I underwent and I had to undergo, and how I was able to overcome adversities, all those situations. And hopefully, by the end of the session, a few of you or some of you would have gained something out of it. And it's a very short presentation, and it's a great opportunity to talk to you as it is the eve of our Independence Day. And I hope all of you enjoy it. Ma'am, is the presentation visible?
Yes, it was visible, sir. I saw that.
No?
Yes, I think it is visible.
Oh, great. So the topic or the talk that I would have today is, I've named it as the art of staying positive, because I feel that staying positive is not only an effort that a person has to make, but also it is basically your journey in life. As you grow in life and as you move in life, we will always come across situations and adversities that we will have to face. And the best way to deal with them is with a positive attitude. Now, if I don't know how many of you have seen India, can anyone tell me, and they can turn on their mic, what is this place? It's a beautiful place in the northern part of India, and it's one of the most beautiful places I have ever been. So anybody has any idea what this place is? And people can just turn on their mic and let me know. Hello.
Yeah, I think they're responding by message also. Kashmir.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so if you have identified it as Gulmarg in winters, it's one of the most beautiful places that you can visit and you must visit. And this is how generally people see Gulmarg as, and people go there, have a wonderful time, and make memories and come back home. Um, but I remember Gulmarg very, very differently. It was in the initial year of my service, and I went there for a wonderful course. It's called the High Altitude Warfare School, and the course is called Winter Warfare. So, how I remember Gulmarg is actually like this. So, I would be in this photograph one of the people who are trying to climb a peak on skis. This was an event called a Langlof. So, and definitely it was one of the most harshest and the toughest course I've ever attended. And the reason why I remember this course or why I am showing this photograph is this course actually taught me of a wonderful concept which I've actually applied in my life. And this concept is of something called a false summit or a false peak. Now, as a mountaineer or as somebody who is, you know, in the armed forces and operating in the high altitude area, you are required to scale peaks and scale mountains. And very often, when you're doing so, you will always hit something called a false summit or a false peak. Now, a false summit or a false peak is nothing but a peak that you see when you're standing at the base of the mountain and you think that is the summit of the mountain, but it is actually not. Once you reach that peak, you see that there's another peak right ahead of you. And this is something which every mountaineer faces and anybody operating in high altitude faces, and it is somewhat how our lives are. We start by tackling, various problems or issues in our lives, or we set our goals and set our aims. But the journey to reach that goal or aim is often met with a lot of false speed, and that is where we actually lose hope or try or give up actually. So the whole idea of the life being a journey akin to that of climbing a mountain is what has actually made me pursue my life in a certain way. That is what I'm going to share with you today. I'll do that with the help of certain photographs and certain point heads, and I'll explain them as I go along. So now, this photograph is of a technique called the Swift Team Insertion and Extraction. Now, this was a technique that we employed to get into a target area very swiftly and very fast, and also to get out of that area. Now, the reason why I have chosen this photograph is not because I'm questioning the limits of the individual doing this task. What I'm questioning is that people must understand the limit of the rope that they're hanging on. Now, your body and your mind is similar to this rope. As long as you understand the limit of your body and your mind, you will always be able to maintain a positive outlook. Putting yourself under immense pressure, putting yourself under strain to an extent where you break this rope is what leads to a lot of issues, as well as the feeling of not being able to achieve what you want in life. Now, if you're able to understand that you have a certain aim and goal in life, but also you have certain limitations. Now, these limitations can be physical as well as mental. And everybody and every human being has those. And all individuals know what their breaking point is. In any way, I'm not trying to say that one should not push themselves for excellence, push themselves to achieve the maximum in life. Yes, it is absolutely and absolutely correct and fine to take yourself to that breaking point. But when you cross the breaking point is when the problem starts. Now, if you know your limits, you will go all the way to the breaking point, stay there, do your task, and come back again and let your body recoup and recuperate. But in case you cross that limit and you break that limit, that is where you will find yourself in a spot where the amount of time that you will require to recuperate will be much, much higher and longer than what is necessarily required by you. So my first advice or lesson that I've learned from the armed forces is know your limits. Push yourself to the maximum, but right at the edge, take a halt, understand where you have reached, and when required, take a step back. There's nothing wrong in doing that. There is no cowardice. There is absolutely no point of you not giving your best. Yes, you are giving your best. And as research scholars, when you are putting in n number of hours of work into your research, at the same time you are attending classes, at the same time you're giving classes, at the same time you are doing other things, your family is there, your social obligations are there. Your body has a limit. Understand that limit, appreciate that limit, and know that limit. Once you do that, you'll find yourself that you're not burning yourself out. The idea is not to burn yourself out too soon. It's a sustained effort, it's a long-term effort, and understanding the limits will help you do that. Now, the second point that I want to talk about is accepting the risks. All tasks, any goal that we set, or any aim that we have in life inherently comes with risks. Be it in the army or the armed forces, be it in your normal life, be it doing a research like you are. Now, I understand, and please correct me if I am wrong, what I've read about research scholars is that they select a topic and they work on that topic for 5 years. And a lot of time it happens that even before they publish their article, somebody else has done a similar study and they have to rework their entire study because that has been published. So am I right in saying this?
Yeah, in the certain, yes, but because scholars are expected to do the publishing also of their work intermittently, so chances of those things happening are very remote.
Yeah. So, okay. So the idea is, yes, they are remote, but the risks are always involved, and
Absolutely.
studying for 5 years, it's a long-term investment in terms of your life and in terms of what you want to do. So once you have accepted the risk involved with the choices you have made, and you know that there are chances that there will be a point in time in life that you might face some difficulty and might face some problem or failure, it will be much more easier for you to tackle it. If you ignore certain risks that are involved with your profession or your the field of work, what you end up doing is you end up in a spot where you have not analyzed where you want it to be, and your response will not be as effective and as efficient as you wanted it to be. So whenever we face risk in our life, everybody, by default responds to it in the most natural way. The first thing that sets in is you get a little scared, you get a little overwhelmed, then your natural body and instincts, they take over, and then you start responding to it. But in case you have prepared for it in advance, so when we used to, what I'll try to explain is, when we used to undertake operations in the army, it was not that we did it at the drop of a hat. The amount of planning which went into planning any operation was extensive, and most of the time what we were doing is we were analyzing the risks involved. So in the armed forces, we are a very ardent believer of Murphy's Law, that no matter how much you prepare, things will go wrong, and they do go wrong. So if we were preparing for one operation, we would actually try and find out the maximum number of things that can go wrong with it. And that is what gives us a very high level of preparedness. We understand the risk, we accept the risk, and we are going for an operation. We know and we are accepting the fact that things will go wrong. So even in life, when you are on a journey, when you are on a path, accepting risks is absolutely and absolutely necessary. It allows you to respond in a much better way and in a much clearer way. Your thought process is clear, your thinking is clear, and once you are able to address the risk, you will see that your journey is actually much, much more easier. So once you have done these two things, the third thing that comes is the change involved. Now the change can either be imposed on you or it is self-imposed. The best way to deal with change, or change in circumstances, or change in the situation, is to embrace it. The more you fight it, the more you become negative towards it, the difficult it will be for you to actually deal with it. Change is the most constant feature in life. Change in situations, change in who you are, change in how things are. And the best example, I think, is what we are undergoing right now with the pandemic. I think changes for people in the teaching profession, or in the profession which I am in, was suddenly from office we were restricted to work online. A lot of us had to learn how to work online, including me, because I am not the most technically savvy person. So if you don't embrace it, you will find it that it becomes difficult to live through it. Change is constant, it will keep on happening. Best part, embrace it, whether it has been imposed or whether it is self-imposed. Include it in your life and then work towards it. Accept it in bits and parts. Don't try to do it in one go. It might overwhelm you, but yes, the process is to actually accept the change, be open about it, and then the journey becomes much, much more easier. Now, with these three things put aside, comes the actual journey. You have accepted the risk, you have accepted the change, you have understood your limits. Now, you're on a path, you're moving on, and the idea is to maintain a pace, to maintain this journey in a way that is sustainable. And the best way to do it is by being focused. Now, this photograph is an old photograph, and I was just rummaging through my hard drive and I saw this photograph. This is a target called the Rubia target. So the blue part of the target is actually the hostage, and the black and orange part of the target is the terrorist. This was a very specialized training that I underwent and did and participated in when I was part of the National Security Guard. National Security Guard, as you know, is an elite anti-terrorist and anti-hijack organization of India. And I was fortunate enough to serve with one of the units called the 52nd Special Action Group. And we specialize in anti-hijack operations. And the whole idea of operating inside the aircraft as a sky marshal the amount of pressure we had to be perfect was immense. The reason why I chose this photograph is because the time which we were given to actually draw our weapon and fire the ammunition was between 2 to 5 seconds. And there was absolutely no way we could hit the hostage. And there was absolutely no way we could hit outside the target. Now, all of us, I think, in life have been told either by our parents or by our colleagues or our well-wishers, that we need to be more focused in life. So many times that when I have faced a certain failure in life, I used to complain, oh, I was not focused about it. That is why I couldn't achieve it. And the reason why I realized and what I thought was the focus I was giving to was the task at hand, the small task at hand. And when I did that, what happened was I lost the bigger picture. Now, when I was operating as Sky Marshal, the bigger picture was for me that in case I make an error in judgment, in case I am not able to hit the target, either I'm going to lose the hostage or I'm going to basically hurt somebody who is not involved in that operation. So the bigger picture of the entire firing exercise was that you need to be perfect because the amount of responsibility you have on your shoulder is immense. And the whole idea for me to focus was, yes, I have to be perfect at this task. I have to fire all my rounds and they have to hit the target and they have to hit in a specific time frame. Then these smaller tasks became much more easier and much more enjoyable, right? So as a research scholar, at the end of the 5 years is your doctorate and your PhD. That's the bigger picture. And as long as you're clear why you want it, the smaller tasks, the smaller, tasks or exercises that come in the way of achieving that bigger target would be much more easier for you. And you will be able to achieve them tackle them in a much more focused way and in a much more satisfying way. Because when you achieve these small aims, it gives you an immense level of satisfaction because the journey is long. And especially for research scholars, as Dr. Banga said, they are also in a constant war wherein they have to achieve or reach this goal of the PhD or doctorate at the end of 5 years. And it is a time-bound activity, so the pressure is immense. And I can understand that how difficult it would be to actually remain focused for such a long period of time. So do it piecemeal, do it in a way where you enjoy it, do it as the time grows and time comes, and keep yourself in a very happy place. Now, as I had already spoken about risks, inherently when the journey is ongoing, you will face obstacles and you will face failure. Now, this photograph is of an obstacle called the 26-foot wall, which was part of our training in the National Security Guard. So in the National Security Guard training center in Manesar, there's a wonderful obstacle course which has 26 obstacles in all. Again, it's a time-bound activity. You have to finish it within a given stipulated time. Otherwise, you fail. And the 13th obstacle is this 26-foot wall that you have to climb. And that is, in the photograph, is pretty much a technique, the way you climb it. You actually climb it using your feet as well as your arms. And since it's the obstacle which is 13th, by the time you reach this obstacle, when you attempt it for the first time, second time, you are inherently meant to fail. Your arms are tired, your body is tired, you have never done it before. And anybody who's undergoing this obstacle course or underwent training has failed in this obstacle. But does it mean that I will not be able to succeed in the entire course, or will I not be able to do it? No. We failed, we accepted it, we came back the next time, we failed again, we went back again, we came the third time. The third time, we could not climb the entire wall. We went halfway. The fourth time, we went to the top, but still could not go over. The fifth time, we were all able to go over. And the reason why we could do it, because we accepted our failures, we knew where we were lacking, and we went back to the board and worked on it. In case you face an obstacle or a failure in your life, that is not the end of the journey. It is just a part of it. Accept it and try to move on. The sooner you move on, the better it is for you, because you'll prepare yourself for the next obstacle. Or once you've accepted your failure, you will be able to put it behind you and start working again and learn from it. So never ever be overconfident. Confidence is good, but in case you have failed, it should not put you down. It should be a stepping stone in achieving what you really want to achieve. It should just be a stepping stone on your journey to success. Now, all these things, when you do or when you undergo in life, what I've realized is we don't give ourselves a break. It is absolutely and absolutely important, and I think it is one of the most important things that I've learned, that you need to take a break when you want it. Now, I'm not saying that you should give up on things that you want to do or are, pursuing, but giving yourself a break not only refreshes you, it also allows you to take on the problems in a much more refreshed manner, in a much more energetic manner. And simple example I'll quote is when I left the army. I said, I've been running around for a very long time. I've been doing so many tasks, and it has been, a tough career. I'll take a break. I actually took a break for 1 year. I literally took a break and I said, I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to eat what I want. I'm not going to watch my calories. I'm going to meet my friends. I'm going to meet my family. I'm going to spend time with them. I'm going to do my work, but I'm not going to take anything which is going to be bothering me. And that break was wonderful. At the moment, I realized, okay, I've had enough break. Now I feel refreshed. Now I really want to get back to the way I was. And it somehow actually coincided with the time when the COVID pandemic had just started in March. I was able to do it because the kind of break that my body required and my mind required, I gave my body a chance to recover. I gave my mind a chance to recover. And it was absolutely, absolutely wonderful. So for scholars who are working day in, day out, who are under immense stress, I suggest that whenever your body or your mind tells you that you need a break, don't ignore it. Whether it's a break for 2 hours, a break for 1 hour, a break for 1 day, 2 days, just go ahead and do it. And your body and your mind, both of them will thank you. These are basically the steps that I've actually implemented in my life. And what I've learned from them is you don't have to plan out everything, because most of the best plans go out of the window the moment things start. But when you follow these simple steps, these simple I won't say rules, but learnings, what it does is it lets you enjoy this journey. Adversities are a part of life. All of us face them. All of us have adversities in our life. All of us have faced it. All of us will face more in the coming time. All of us have problems. All of us deal with them. All of us are capable enough of moving in life while dealing with these adversities. And what we should allow, or what we should be able to do, is do it piecemeal. Taking on a challenge without realizing our limits or without understanding how big the problem is actually, in a way, we are setting ourselves up for a probable failure. So it's better to take it in a piecemeal approach, do it slowly, do it in a way which will allow you to actually tackle it with a certain level of comfort. And this is what is, has actually motivated me to move in life, and motivated me in being who I am. Changing of careers, let's say, the change I faced was when I left the army and I decided to come to the corporate world. It was a huge, huge decision. And once I did it, I faced a new set of challenges which I had to adapt to. And this is the approach which I followed. Multiple fall peaks, multiple summits coming in. No worries. I'll clear one summit. I'll go to the next summit. I'll go to the next summit. And I'll keep moving on till I reach my goal. Quite honestly, this is what I had in mind that I wanted to share with you. And I would love to interact with you now, because I find it to be a much more interesting way of dealing with queries and questions. And ma'am, I would request, if though I have the presentation on, I would suggest that we do it over a mic. So I'll stop presenting now, and we can open up the Q&A session. And I think my video is working. I guess so.
Your video is working. We are able to see you.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So yes, definitely. I think questions can come in, and the scholars and the guests can please switch on their audio and ask questions, or even you can switch on your videos as well. So one question which I had while some are starting off is that Major Rohit Singh, you are a third generation soldier.
Yes, ma'am.
How did that affect the choice of your first career into the army and thereafter coming into the corporate sector?
Ma'am, quite honestly, when I say I'm a third generation soldier, I think it's been more than 3 generations now, because and I come from a family which has participated in all major conflicts starting from World War I. My grandfather was in the British Army, a decorated soldier. My maternal grandfather, again, was one of the first awardees of Veer Chakra. My father participated in the 71 war, was awarded the Sena Medal for Gallantry, and it runs in the blood. It runs in the blood so thick that even my sister is a recipient of the Bravery Award, Children's Bravery Award. And as the youngest in the family, when I made my choice to join the army, obviously I had a huge legacy to follow. And it was second nature for me that I had to get in. Getting out was the difficult part, because I had to make a choice that I'm leaving behind a profession that has been in my family for over 100 years now. Was my father too happy? No, he was not. But he had a lot of questions, and I said, it is something which I feel is necessary in life, is to take up challenges and keep moving on, keep growing in life. And once I made that choice, when I knew that I wanted to go out and explore something new, take on a new challenge, the decision felt right, and that's what I did.
Okay. You've been in the infantry unit, and you've been part of the airborne unit. You've been part of the National Security Guard, the NSGs, the Black Cat Commandos that we all hear about. Between the infantry and the Black Cat Commandos, what was the difference, or what was more challenging? And I think some questions are coming up. We'll also take that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the infantry is the largest fighting arm of the army. I would say if you compare the army to a dagger or sword, the infantry would be the tip of it. They hold the ground, they fight the battles, and um, the maximum number of soldiers or officers in the Indian army are from infantry. So once you join the army, you are given an option to be a part of the infantry or the armored, which is the tanks you see, or the artillery, which is the guns, or the engineering regiment. So when you volunteer for the infantry, you are actually volunteer for the premier fighting arm of the army. And once you do that, there are other options which are available to you. You volunteer for much more specialized units which require a higher level of training. And obviously, both the NSG and the specialized airborne unit, first you had to undergo a selection period of 3 months. Once you complete that selection period of 3 months, then you go advanced training for another 1.5 months, and only then you are able to be a part of those units. So obviously, the airborne unit and the NSG was much more challenging, because first you have to qualify for them and you have to volunteer. But the base was provided by the infantry. If I was able to do it, was because of the training I received when I was part of the infantry unit.
Okay, but which was the most glamorous one? I think we'll come to that question. There's a question from one of our guests in the session, who is from the Christ University admission. Sir, if you can please put your name, sir or ma'am. But the question is here, Major Rohit, sir, can you suggest some of the stress management activities?
Oh, sorry. Okay, this is what I will actually quote from the last 4 months, which has happened in our lives. So as I told you, I took a break and I said I'll not do anything, which was physically too challenging, or I'm just going to take a break and live my life happily. When this COVID pandemic started, obviously we were put under a lot of stress, be it in our work area or be in how we were working. And one thing which actually helped me was being physically active. When you're physically active, you actually give yourself a break from all the other activities you're doing. You actually free up your mind also. Because whether you're walking, whether you're running, maybe doing 5 push-ups or 10 push-ups, or just lying down and doing crunches, you're focusing on that activity. And in that period, you actually stop thinking about anything else. The best way, if you have, or you can go out for a walk, whether it's early morning or late in the evening, the best way to be stressed is actually to become physically active. Put in a little bit of physical activity in your life. Go for a walk, go for a jog, or just do some exercise inside your house. Maybe you can do aerobics, maybe you can do Zumba. Just turn on the music, dance for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and trust me, your entire stress level will come down. The stress you were feeling, whether it was mentally or physically, you will actually get rid of it. So this is something which works and works very well. Do some physical activity at least for 15 to 20 minutes in a day. It will help you out a lot.
Now, one more question I had, Major, before we go to Sunidhi's question, in line with the question asked by the guest from Christ University, is the fact that, say, when you are in a high pressure situation, like you talk about the anti-terrorism or the, going to rescue hijacking, or if you're in the Black Hat Commandos. Now, even if you're stressed, you cannot take a break, perhaps, or if you're in a stress situation for hours together, you might not have the luxury to kind of take a break for stress per se, as in the civilian life. How then did you or your colleagues, or do colleagues in the army, how do they handle those kind of stressful situations? And if you could elaborate on that.
Okay, ma'am. So the idea is, obviously, when we are volunteering for such tasks, we know we will be under high stress and pressure. So what is done is, when you're undergoing the training, is when they start molding you. The reason why the training is so difficult and there's such a high attrition rate when it comes to selection, and not everybody can clear the training, is that they put you under the stress or more stress while you're under the training period. And this is what actually prepares you for the actual situation, because you have undergone so much stress, be it physically or mentally, when you are in training, that when the actual thing happens, you're actually ready for it. What I'll quote is like a small example. Like when I was doing a duty of a sky marshal. We were supposed to cover flights, and we were supposed to fly in those flights. And these flights were long. The flights could last 7 hours, 8 hours, and given the preparation time and the time we were supposed to report to the airport and then come back to the unit again, we would actually have been busy for almost 12 hours. And when you are a sky marshal or when you are doing this duty, neither can you sleep, nor can you wink, nor can you take a break, because that is what your job is. And there's nothing that can prepare you for that kind of stress unless you have been put under that stress in training. So for the army, it's very different. For the armed forces, the training is made that way that you are able to sustain under high stress situations. Can we do it in the civil life? No, obviously not, because there's nobody to impart that kind of training or put you under that kind of training, and neither is it required. What happens is when you are like in the corporate world or in the, like your students or research scholars, the level of stress and the kind of stress they face is different. One is the stress is a lot of times self-imposed. When you come under stress because you feel that you're not meeting your own expectations. Sometimes it is the situation that puts the stress on you, like you have to submit a paper, like you have to meet a deadline. So the idea is, when you know that the deadline is there and when you know that something has to be submitted, why not take it in a peaceful approach and start preparing for it in time rather than actually coming under stress at the last moment and last minute. So a little bit of planning can help in a very long way, and it can actually help scholars to actually not come under stress, and that is how they should approach it.
So I think there's a question also, I think, which is being answered from Sunidhi, which was the most inspiring challenge of your life. And there is a question from one of our scholars, Asha S. How do you prepare yourself to be away from your family for a long time and engage in the work?
Okay, so this is where self-belief and passion comes in. All of you are scholars because you are passionate about the subject that you chose, and you really want to, work in that field. So it is this passion which will actually inspire you or motivate you to be away from your family to actually pursue what you love. So army is not a job. It is always a passion. And I can actually relate it to what you people are doing, because becoming a research scholar and, dedicating that much amount of time to studies and to feel that is your passion is similar, because nobody is going to become a research scholar unless they are passionate about that field. Somebody could be passionate about physics, somebody could be chemistry, somebody maybe some engineering sciences, some maybe some other field. And it is the passion that motivated you to become research scholar, and it was a choice that you made. And as long as that passion is alive and that is required, you will be happy to do what you're doing. The moment that passion goes away, and sometimes you have those self-doubt in your mind, that is when you start missing your family and you start missing, finding it stressful to do this. So never let the passion go away, never let the passion die. Be passionate about it and you will breeze through it.
Okay, question from Wasim Ahmed. Major, can you see that at what age did you join the Indian Army?
At what age did I join the Indian Army? I joined when I was 22, after my graduation.
And I think Sunidhi is asking that question. How do you compare war and thesis writing? I think I can answer that.
Yeah, so I agree with it. So it's long run. It's there are going to be casualties. You're going to get injured. You're going to get up again and continue fighting, because in case you lose a battle, the war is not lost. All right. You sometimes lose a battle, but you bring yourself up again, and then you again get back to your thesis writing. So even if you make some mistake on your paper and your guide sends it back with 100 remarks and turns it red, don't falter. Be positive. It's just a battle lost. The war is still on, and you must win it.
I think Sunidhi would have got the message. And there's one from Vishu Swami. Of course, we also have Mr. Venkat thanking for the wonderful session. Vishu Swami, how do you maintain work-life balance?
Prioritize what is important. I am a firm believer of, and compartmentalizing things. I don't mix things, and I'll show you an example why. So I've got two phones. One is my home phone, one is my office phone. I never mix things up. That is the only reason why I carry two phones. So when I come back from the office, when I've done my work, and I'm inside my house, I try to detach myself from what has happened, and I come back with a smile. I take a break, I go for my run, come back refreshed, and next day when I'm going for my work, no matter what the situation is, I try and go back with a smile. Now, so when you're doing a PhD work, when you're doing your office work, try and prioritize things as per the need and requirement, and try to compartmentalize them. Don't bring your frustration back to your home, because when you come back home, it is your family that can cheer you up. And if you bring that frustration back home and you actually put that frustration on them, so your entire environment becomes frustrated, because you'll be frustrated at home, you'll be frustrated at the work, and when you're writing your thesis, you'll get even more frustrated. So try not doing that, and just try to come back with a positive attitude when you're coming back, no matter how the day has been. And next day when you're going back, again try to go back with a positive attitude.
Okay. Now, while we circulate the feedback link that is being given, people can please pick it up. The last but not the least question I wanted to ask you, Major, I think, which is also applicable, which keeps me curious all the time, is it because of your armed forces training, or people who are in the forces, because of the training that they get into, and as you said, the attrition rates from the training or the selection and rejection process is so high. Do you think that process itself makes an individual much more capable to handle life rather than the civilians who may not have opted for something?
So what I would say is, it doesn't make us capable of handling life. I think it makes us capable of handling certain situations. I think the training, the discipline, the ethos that we are taught in the army, it makes us more capable of dealing with a situation when we face one. And in no way are people who are not in the armed forces not capable of dealing with situations in life. Be it doctors, be it engineers, be it somebody working in the construction site, be it people who are teaching. I think all of us face adversities, and all of us have our own mechanism of dealing with it. The training in the army lets us just I think maintain a much more braver face. We are all humans, we come from the same society, we have the same upbringing. The only thing that it is doing us, it is just giving us a different skill set, which just allows us to be a little better prepared. That's all. Rest, I think everybody is absolutely capable of dealing with any kind of situation.
All right. Thank you, Major. I think we have got a lot of feedback saying that they've got really inspired with your session. And yes, especially I think because of your background in the army, the sessions are more interesting. But do you think that your transition into the corporate life has been made more possible because of your background in the forces?
I would say, ma'am, yes, definitely it does help. People do have a certain level of respect for army officers who are coming out of the armed forces. And yes, it is a great and wonderful organization. And you bring in a certain set of skills and values that you come along with. And when you join a new organization, you try to inculcate those practices and those values into this new organization, and that is appreciated. But again, it's a corporate world. No matter where you come from, you have to prove yourself, and you have to keep doing well, and you have to keep pushing yourself. It is in no way, a free pass that is given. Okay, I was an army officer and I can just get away with anything. No, I think everybody needs to put in the hard work, and that is what everyone should do.
Okay, I really appreciated your calm manner in which you actually elaborated on all of these aspects. I think that is also a part of the armed forces training. You're very calm, very collected, very focused, and I think every bit of your speech today or the talk that you've given today has been full of advice. I think when people go back to the videos, watching and re-watching it, there's a lot of takeaways, not only for PhD scholars, I think for individuals as well.
I hope so, and that was the whole idea. If I can share my life and give it, a certain small, what do you call it, overview of how my life was and how I have lived my life. And if somebody can take away anything from it, I'll be the happiest person. And I wish everyone the best of luck in all their future endeavors. And anybody who wants to stay in touch, please do stay in touch. And I'll be much more, I'll be happy to, interact, and I'll be happy to be there if anything is required from my side.
Right. Dr. Banga, sir, are you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was very elaborate in a session by Major Rohit on how to take on the stress and how to be always pleasant. In fact, now this is the time probably he could be with his family, forgetting all the corporate world problems. Still, he has taken time off to be with us, with our scholars. So, have got some tips as to how to overcome whatever stress, whatever they are facing. And I'm sure this will be a great learning for all of them. Major Rohit, I thank you profusely on behalf of the university, on behalf of the scholars. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. And it was wonderful interacting with all of you.
Yeah, thank you, Major Rohit Singh. It was really wonderful having you. It's not only just inspirational speech, but from a man of action. And we're going to treasure this video and share it with all in the research cell and with all scholars. And we'll keep coming back to you. Thank you so much for sparing your time. Thanks to all the scholars, guests who have joined us today for your time. And we wish you all a very happy Independence Day.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and wish you all a good day and enjoy your Sunday. And take a break and have a good brunch and enjoy your life.
Yes, with regards from Research Cell, Dayanand Sagar University, we sign off here. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Sir, Dr. Manga, sir, we'll close the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Major. Thank you.
Thanks.